Welcome back. This is Daybreak, and thank you for staying with us. The hashtag on X is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. With me in studio this morning, Dr. Hassan Kanenje. Good morning, Dr.
Good morning.
Much appreciated for your time.
Yes.
What a time to discuss Addis and what will be happening on Saturday. Ahmed Hashi, good morning.
Good morning, Ayub. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here.
And thank you for making time for the broadcast. Dr. Duncan Ojwang also joins us. Good morning.
Morning, sir.
Dr. by the way, tells us that he will be on the next flight tomorrow, Friday. On Thursday,
that was awesome.
He will be heading to Addis ahead of the election of the chairperson and the deputy chairperson by the Assembly. And gentlemen, thank you for your time. Much appreciated.
Very much.
So let's discuss this and all in-between factors that may influence the outcome of the elections, including the fading French influence in western part of the continent, Trump 2.0 back in the White House, as well as geopolitics, the Anglophone and the Francophone divide, which may end up punctuating the outcome of the election. So let's begin with how the composition of the process looks like. And the AUC, the African Union Commission, is composed of the chairperson, the deputy chairperson, and the commissioners. It is the Assembly which elects the chairperson and the deputy chairperson, and the Executive Council thereafter elects the commissioners, who are then appointed by the Assembly. The commission members' terms are for 4 years, renewable only once, as is the case at the moment for the commission led by Musa Faki Mahamat. Let's now take a look at who then elects what. In terms of the composition, the Assembly elects the chairperson and the deputy chairperson, and which then is appointed by the Assembly, the Executive Council, after the election of the commissioners. And we move on to the selection principle of the AUC electoral principle, and these are factors that will be determining the outcome. It includes the question of equitable gender representation, gender parity, predictable rotation, transparent and merit-based selection process. And the rotational was introduced during the Ministerial Executive Council, which stated that the rotation by partial restriction controlling the role of the chairperson and the deputy chairperson. In this regard, the Eastern region will produce the chairperson and the Northern region will produce the deputy chairperson. The Central, Southern and Western regions will be producing all the 6 commissioners of the commission. So we take a look at the profiles of who will be against who. The former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, a Kenyan national, will be facing off with Mahmoud Ali Yusuf. Djibouti is currently serving Foreign Affairs Minister, and Madagascar's James Randria Mandrato ahead of the Saturday elections. The former Prime Minister, we understand, will be in Bujumbura, the Burundian capital, to meet President Evariste Ndayishimiye for the last leg of the campaigns before his historic visit to the Somali capital, Mogadishu, to drum up support from the Somali government that's headed by President Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud. Then he will be taking the flight to Bole International Airport, 2 hours away from Mogadishu, in Addis, where he will be then facing off with Mahmoud Ali Yusuf and James Randria Mandrato. Gentlemen, thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.
Much appreciated. A lot is going to be dependent on whatever that will come out of the election on Saturday. First, beginning with you, Dr. Hassan Kanenje. The second attempt now, taking a stab, Amina Mohamed, ambassador, was defeated by Musa Faki Mahamat. Now Raila Odinga faces James Randria Mandrato and Mahmoud Ali Yusuf. What are the optics? And do you see the campaigns which was staged by the president and Raila on himself across the continent as producing a material outcome on Saturday?
Yes, it's indeed true. You know, this is the second time Kenya is making a go at the AUC, chairperson's seat. And Kenya, I think, has made a spirited effort to make its case within the African continent. Now, it is clearly that even though there are 3 candidates right now running, I think the front runners, is the Kenya's candidate, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, and Djibouti. Now, is the campaign sufficient? Of course, that is going to be left to be seen, in a few days. But I think to the extent that Kenya has tried to make a case, you cannot discount it. Perhaps someone may say that this should have started much earlier, But either way, if you compare the amount of efforts, put in by Djibouti and Kenya, then you cannot say Kenya has not done enough. Now, of course, the other complexities that are going, of course, to determine, the final outcome. One, you have the geopolitical, aspect that, for instance, the aspects that, Djibouti enjoys naturally as a member of the Francophone, despite the declining French influence of the continent, but also as a member of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, as well as a member of the Arab League. But Nairobi seems to be very confident that they could be having upwards of around 30 votes. Now, if that stays like that and last-minute calls to a number of capitals, stays the same, then there's a likelihood that they may have a good showing, if not overall, at least in the first round, of this voting.
How much does one need to clinch?
I think it's two-thirds. Two-thirds, yes.
So we are talking about 32?
Yes.
Okay. In the first round, if you are that now secure the win. Ahmed, certainly it's profile racing, given that Kenya for the second time is seeking to hold that office. What's your take of the campaign so far since Odinga's official launch by the president on the 27th of August 2024?
The great Irish poet Seamus Heaney quipped once that you can start with hope, and even if it's dashed, you still have to have hope. I think that the configuration of the last 60 days with the election of Donald Trump as the president of the United States and the spat that's going on with South Africa and the United States over issues of apartheid and racism is now going to come to bear even further to the elections of the African Union, I believe. I think that's a very critical part that we have to look at. The Americans used to stay out of the African Union business, but I think Trump is going to put pressure on some of the states in the African Union to change their vote. Remember last time when Amina Mohammed was running, the Uganda vote went to the candidate from Chad.
Musa Faki Mahamat.
Yes, and they had stood with us as the East African bloc. I mean, this is just a fact. You can fact check that. So I think that all this stuff about getting endorsements from certain states is going to come to naught, because I think our candidate is facing a tremendous amount of bulwark. Remember, 4 months ago I was here with you, Mr. Ayub, and I said that he's not going to win, and that the Francophone countries, the Sahel, the Muslim IOC organization, which has endorsed the candidate from Djibouti, and the international community were going to come and really take on Mr. Odinga for the African Union. And I also want to point towards the crisis in the DRC, which is also going to affect the AU election. Because, you know, the Congolese burnt down our embassy and trashed it in Kinshasa. Kagame, who's part of East Africa, doesn't believe we're an honest broker in the discussions in the Great Lakes. Ethiopia has come out since yesterday saying that they're not sure about Mr. Odinga. To nail the coffin on North Africa, Mr. Odinga went to Egypt with the president. He was given a red carpet treatment. And right after that, Egypt endorsed the Djibouti candidate. So I think it's an uphill task, and I'm going to keep my statement from 4 months ago. I believe that even the candidate from Madagascar and Mauritius are going to line up behind Djibouti, because they're also from the Francophone group. I think our candidate has a very tough time. I think he's going to lose in the second round of voting.
And the candidate of Madagascar had since dropped out, Senior Counsel Anil Gayan. He is no longer contesting. So we only have James Randriamandrato and Raila Odinga and Mahmoud Ali Yusuf. Dr. By the way, we are joined by Peter Opondo Kalumba, Homa Bay Town Member of Parliament. Good morning.
Morning.
Thanks for your time. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Dr. Ojwang, how are the optics? I mean, we will discuss at length the visions for the three candidates as they had outlined in the AU portal. But given the campaign so far, what's your reading into this, as much as the energy and the input by Odinga in the diplomatic shuttle campaign that he has made across the continent?
Yeah, of course, learning from the campaign of Amina last time, we are cautiously optimistic. And that was one lesson that was clear, that it's not over until it's over. However, it appears that the Muslim states are more pushing towards the deputy. And with the principle of equity and fairness, it appears that then it leaves former Prime Minister as the main contender for the chairmanship, because I could see a lot of endorsement also for the deputy. And down here, none of this East African bloc or our allies are producing a deputy, which means that it appears there is a settled arrangement that the East side bring the chair, and then
North side.
Yeah, a gentleman's agreement, so to speak. I think there is every reason to believe that if there is anyone who should be more optimistic, of course it's a race, it's Kenya. Kenya have done a lot of geopolitical relations. You know, in the north, the president has visited and have spoken to quite a number of the countries there. In Central, we have seen a few endorsements, central part of Africa. The East Africa, which now is chaired by the President Ruto, appears to be a bloc supporting Raila. The West Africa, you know, he has serious allies, including Nigeria. We are seeing Ghana coming and supporting him. We saw the president of Guinea, I think it was Guinea. We have seen Raila in Cote d'Ivoire. Equatorial Guinea. We have seen him in Algeria, Senegal, and all that. I think there is all likelihood that he will win. Okay. And there is all likelihood that this campaign this time has been done with the lessons of Amina failure. Okay. And therefore, very optimistic. Okay. And it is the right call for Africa. Okay. Because if you look at the mandate and the 12 functions of that office, Prime Minister Raila pushing for that will be a game changer and renaissance or rebirth or baptism. Okay. Rebaptism for Africa. Okay. Finally, I see Kenyans and the people pushing for that because they know what that means for Africa, having that visibility and having a situation where you can push for the candidate and, of course, leaving no one behind.
All right, all right. Honorable Peter Opondo, about 3 months ago, you were satisfied beyond reasonable doubt that President William Ruto has staged a campaign to push Odinga's candidature. This morning, are you still convinced that he has done enough for Odinga to win?
Yeah, let me say Raila's campaigns have gone very well. In fact, it has been one of the best. I don't know a single head of state in Africa who has not been met or asked for votes. I really do not know this single state Raila has not visited, either alone or with the president. And so if we were to look at it in terms of campaigns, in terms of the vision, he has, you know, Raila's ideals. Sit with Raila even for 5 minutes when we do so, and he'll very easily jump out of Kenya to talk about what would benefit another country in Africa. His knowledge about African states, their history and continents, is quite deep. And by the way, when he talks about it, it is not something artificial. It is also not something he's starting during this time is bidding to chair the African Union Commission. But he's somebody who understands Africa very well. You know, Raila has served as the High Representative in charge of infrastructure in Africa. You know, Raila has a history in Kenya initially, you know, as an opposition leader, at times also as a government official, Minister for Energy. You know the reforms he brought when he was in the Ministry of Energy. In fact, people forget. But these things like REREC, Rural Electrification Program, and these are the electricity infrastructure, you know, lighting up Kenya, was his vision. You know what Raila did thereafter as the Minister for Roads and Infrastructure. And Ayub, you know, our young people again forget. Yeah. But if you see the bypasses in Nairobi, if you see Thika Road, people now forget that these were done during Raila's time. And people forget that even at the time, you know, Raila was coming up with the idea of doing the Thika Road to do all it, so that people can, you know, enter town easily and leave, you know, town after business back to their, you know, areas of residences. So many people from, you know, along that road sued Raila in court. And at that time, Raila was demolishing their properties, you know, all over. Today, of course, you'll hear accolade to President Kibaki, you know, taking away the fact that these were the ideas of Raila. You see the impact of the expressway, and you know they were all designed at that time. So I want to say that in that history, Ayub, Raila has built, you know, networks. You see how comfortable he is when he meets the heads of states and presidents. They're essentially peers. For the first time, Professor Juang will tell you that the matter of who becomes the AUC chairperson is being discussed globally. I mean, we had elections last time. It was never an issue. Even our great media station, Citizen, I don't know when it was debated.
We had a comprehensive discussion and coverage around
maybe one and off. But for the first time, you see the world gripped. And you see Ahmed saying, even Trump may be interested. All regions of Africa are pushing an interest. And this does not speak merely to AUC. But it speaks to the clout of the person called Raila Amolo Odinga and the impact it takes in. So to answer your question straight, I want to signal my gratitude to people, whether Kenyans across Africa and across the world, who have stood with Raila in this bid for his vision. And in that regard, let me thank, in a very utmost way, the President of the Republic of Kenya to support a person you just competed with in the manner he has is something to appreciate.
All right.
And people keep importing politics. But I can tell you, to me, he has done well. And whatever happens, and I'm saying whatever happens, because ultimately it is our desire and optimism that Prime Minister Raila Odinga wins this bid.
Thank you.
But I'm saying whatever happens, because it is still an election. We hope for the best. But we remain, you know, eternally grateful in gratitude. Ayub,
we need to go on a break and come back. I'll finish up with you.
Yes.
Come to Dr. Kanenji as well, and Ahmed and Dr.
Kaluma is giving a speech at a stadium.
Those were his submissions.
You have protected him. I was going to him.
When we get back from the break, gentlemen, beyond the campaigns, the three gentlemen had equally presented their vision for the continent. Odinga, for example, Dr. Kanenji, I'll be starting with you, talked about Pan-Africanism, peaceful and democratic secure Africa, enhance intra-African trade and strategic partnerships. But there is Donald Trump in the White House, and the tariffs and the executive orders he signed since coming to power, even with strategic allies, including Canada, Mexico, and China, another rivalry, is what we're going to be talking about in the essence of also the fading French influence and, of course, Kenya's role as a geopolitical player in the region, gentlemen. So that's the extent with which we'll be expounding on this discussion in the next 1 hour when we get back from the break here on the broadcast.
Good.